Okay, I'm Nathan with Blue Oak. Today we're gonna cable a post oak that has a really bad split below us. The two halves of the crown are splitting apart. You can't really see it very well from up here, but from down there it's pretty obvious. Anyways, this is how we install EHS cable with a rig guy wire stop. One of the first things you have to figure out how to do is to bring the two halves of the crown to each other, or the two stems, whatever you're cabling. In this case, we're using a 2-to-1 mechanical advantage running with a rigging rope to a GRCS at the base, but you can also use a come along or CMI rope jack, or fiddle block system, whatever. We want to install our cable in the top 2/3 of the crown above the split, not the top 2/3 of the tree, but rather the top 2/3 above the split. But the higher you go, the more you get into narrower wood, so you can't go too far up. They say between the top 2/3 and the top 25%. So I'm gonna put mine about here, all right? And then I'm gonna just kind of aim it back at that little stem back there. I picked the stem I'm gonna cable to. I always try to pick the fatter stem, but I also don't want to go into a point where there's a union. So you have to sort of play with this a little bit, but I'm gonna probably go choose, let's see, tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna choose this one here, and I'm gonna go back to that one all the way over there, and that'll help pull these outer leaders together just for more effective holding of the whole crown. I could do this one to that one that my block is on, but then I'm really only on those two inside leaders. I'd rather go on the two outer leaders that are drifting away from each other more. Okay? There's a lot of factors you have to think about when you choose where to install your cable lines. We also don't want the cable rubbing on this limb right here, but I'm far away enough that I feel good about it. All right, so I want to ream that out really good so that the cable won't have any problems going through. Notice I didn't drill perpendicular to the stem. I drilled at my imaginary level line between the two stems. I want to be, I want my cable to run perpendicular to the split below me. Okay, that's why I went in not perpendicular to the stem wood. I went off at a little angle there. I like to have the whole cable basket right like over here. Sometimes I'll hang it from the tree if I don't have the lift helping. But that way I can just run it out, put a stop on that side, then pull the two crowns together, and then I know exactly where to cut it. You could also use a laser rangefinder and then have the ground guys cut the section of cable, but I don't like wasting any of the cable, so I like to just see it and do it right in the tree. It's a little bit more cumbersome, but it's more precise. All right, Now that I've ran my cable through both the holes, my next step in this process is going to be installing a cable stop on the one side, the far side. Then we winch the tree together. Then we pull our cable taut, cut it right at the right length, put the other stop on, release it. So I'm going to get that backpack now, which has my cable stop and the pliers that I need. This is a cable grip. Right there. I'm just going to raise the green rope a little bit closer to that cable up there, and I'm going to raise that a little bit closer as well. But my stop is set on this side. Once we start pulling on it, it's going to seat in really well. All right. By getting this rope up closer to the cable, we'll have the best effect on pulling it in line. So we're going to go up this far. Get a little closer. All right, Mason, you can go ahead and load the green rope on the GRCS. And it's going to pull on our pulley. It's going to pull all the slack out of the cable, and it's going to bring these two stems together. Watch how these stems come together once he starts cranking. Yep. You see that? See that getting tight?
It's funny. It's like the tree my arm is on is getting lifted.
Yeah, and it's making me sag. Right there. Good. 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 Now we don't want to make it. We've got an active split, so I'm actually making it a little tighter than I normally would. Normally, you don't want to. If there's not a pre-existing split, you don't want to make it this tight. You just want to take all the slack out of the cable. But in this case, we've got an existing split, so I'm actually trying to pull it part way together. Go right here. Go there. There. A little bit better. I'm ready for that grinder to be passed up. Now the cool part of this rig guy wire stop. All right, it's made of two main pieces, a cone and like a hex nut. First thing you want to do is put the hex nut on the cable like that, and you want the smaller hole to to go on the cable first, and then there's a bigger hole that's going to be pointing out. Okay? Next thing to do is to use the pliers, and you can see that this cable is 7 strand. You may or may not be able to see that. We're going to unwrap the strands. We're just going to get them started with pliers, and then it gets easier, and you can do it with your fingers. You want them to make a flower pattern as they unwrap. Okay, there we go. I'm getting it started. Okay, now do you see that? See how I'm unwrapping it with my fingers now? Go ahead and clip this here. Now there's a center one. That center one is the one that the cone is going to go on. And take this cone and put it right there. I'm going to take my needle nose pliers, put it on like so. I'm going to take another set of pliers, use them like a hammer, to hammer that cone in nice and deep, making sure that these other strands of cable are evenly spaced around the center and around the cone. Okay? You want them to be evenly spaced, and you want that cone to be seated in as deep as it can go. Now I did this on the other side before we started pulling on it. Anyways, that looks good. Next thing we're going to do is a final safety measure. We're going to take this center that is holding the cone in place, and we're going to just bend it down. But we don't want to make the other ones shift while we do that. Try to get a good grip on it, and without making the other ones shift around it, start to bend that center one down. Once you've gotten it started, it gets easier. You just want to put a good bend in it so that that cone can't possibly back out. Okay? Double check that all your strands look centered, or at least evenly spaced around the cone. And then the last step is going to be releasing your tension, which again in our case is a GRCS, so I'm just going to call down to a guy on the ground to release that tension. Mason, you can release all the tension. Okay, so the tension is released, and now our cable is nice and straight. It's holding these two stems together. It's pulling that split together a little better. I will mention one more thing. It is optional to use some mini bolt cutters to trim these if you want to. These Nipex pliers are good enough to cut through one strand of EHS cable. Some guys like to trim them up because it looks a little nicer. But it is kind of not necessary. If you do trim them up, don't cut the center one. And they even make a stupid little rubber cap that you can put over this as well if you wanted to. Anyway, just a little bonus there.